Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second of our speaker interviews for Nomos Birmingham. Also, will probably serve as a quick update. I know we put out some stuff last week, which alarmed a few people. Ticket sales have just been a little bit slow, but we have had about 7 or 8 within the last day or so. So we are well on the way to selling some more. I've also been in contact with the venue. If we do need to downsize a little bit, we can. I know a few people were a little bit worried about that. I'll get that said straight away. It's not being cancelled. We just got a little bit ambitious with 100 people, and it may be a little bit less. Although we may still sell out because we did have a big bump last time we did this, so there's no need to panic. But anyway, today I'm joined by Mr. SD Wickett. If you want to give yourself a quick intro there.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you can call me Sam. SD's more of a sort of stylistic choice. But yeah, I work over at a Bournbrook Magazine. I do the digital stuff, so I do the podcasts and the YouTube channel as well. So through that, I host our current Predicament, which is sort of the flagship show. It's just like an hour long chat about culture and society and the arts. Um, and as well as that, I write for the magazine and I publish poetry over on Substack.
Yes, I've got those two things open currently. I'll just show that off. Yeah, I've got your Songs of a Fogged Mind Substack open. I've also got Bournbrook Digital because you are the digital editor there, aren't you?
Yes, not the editor.
No, 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 no. I made that mistake previously. No, I've corrected that, and it does now say digital editor. You can be found, like I said, on Substack, on Bournbrook, and on Twitter. I've got your Twitter up here if people want to follow you. I'll have all of these in the video description as well, since this will be going up in the future of Saturday. So who knows? Who knows what the state of the world will be then? Because we're currently recording this on Friday. Sorry, not Friday, Thursday. I'm getting my days mixed up. We're currently recording this on
Thursday,
Thursday. Yes.
day
Uh,
two of the Great Eastern War.
yes. We'll see. We'll see where that is. But yeah, the theme, as you know, for the event in Birmingham on the 26th is this idea of an intellectual or ideological vanguard, really, or even just leaders within a community emerging within itself. Because as I went over last time, the first event in Manchester was purely just about community and localism, and this will be more about what coalesces from that. So I know there's been a lot of talk online about this, all this kind of stuff. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I suppose I'll go into it more in my address at the event, but my thoughts on it are based around a few different offshoots. The first is sort of analyzing one's role within the Vanguard, and to that end, I've put together several archetypes of what sort of person should do what in the Vanguard. I mean, I think there are people in our circles who are more uh, economic in their thinking than I am. I'm more of a sort of cultural thinker.
Mm.
But even through my limited understanding of economics, I understand the need to divide labor up. So for that end, you will need people who fulfill the role of the priest, the warrior, the poet, the architect, the Machiavellian. So that's something that I'll go into. But there will be two major tangents in my speech. The first will be outlining why a vanguard is necessary, and to do that, I'll point to essentially why 2016 failed. And my theory to that is because there wasn't any sort of attempt to consolidate power after the initial electoral victory of someone like Donald Trump. We simply just sort of, I think, foolishly and naively assumed that the job was done and that he was just going to sort of, barnstorm through the regime and kind of dismantle it piece by piece. Um, so yeah, we ignored the need for a vanguard then, and all that happened is, 4 years later, the regime is back and more potent than ever.
Yes, it is. It's revenge of the regime. I think that would
Yeah,
gel
absolutely.
quite well with the my speech that is going to be about why the Vanguard hasn't emerged, really, as a full analysis, and why natural elites fail to emerge in the current circumstances that we have. I think that's quite an important analysis to do. So it's good hearing in these different angles and these different bits and pieces from people. It's always a concern that the speeches won't won't work well together when you have multiple speakers who are
Mm.
organizing their own thoughts, without influence. Obviously, we don't have talking points really to hit. We just have a general theme. So
Mhm.
I'm quite glad to hear that. That seems to probably gel well with what I'll be saying.
Yeah,
Um,
because 'cause one thing that I see that's quite tragic is a lot of these archetypes are now in sort of current day doing things that aren't befitting of their archetype. So the main one I can think of is you ever see these these like sort of gym bound dinos. This big big muscular fellas who are
yes,
like estate agents or work in DFS. Well, I mean, once upon a time,
extremely, yeah, extremely
once upon a
Barrett
time,
Holmes.
yeah, exactly. And once upon a time, they would have been conquerors, or like the people who have been prophets and priests are now sort of frogging on Twitter. We've sort of been driven either underground or into the normie sphere. I think one thing that I hope would happen in the event of some sort of regime change was these people will finally realize their potential to be these sort of um, ubermenches that they're destined to
It's
be.
just, well, maybe not Ubermenches, but at least they'd fulfill more the role that they see within themselves. You're
Yeah,
right.
they would in some way self-actualize. Yeah.
Yes, it's a big part of something I've touched on previously, but I don't think I really have room for it in my speech. Is the whole surrogate activities thing that people talk about
Mm.
now, and they have rediscovered a lot of the work of Ted Kaczynski, but that's a good angle on that. I won't ruin the speech though. A quick thing I want to go through before we have a little bit of a maybe a little bit of freeform discussion, just to end this out, is I put out an update about the exact details of the event. I'll go over that a little bit here in the video in case people didn't see that. It will be the Ibis Birmingham Centre New Street. It's a bit of a long name, but that's the actual name of the hotel. We have booked one of their function suites. Some people are commenting that the 10 p.m. finish seemed a bit early. That's just the finish of the speaking. We will be able to stay in the hotel bar at least till 12 a.m. and probably beyond if people want to. And a couple of people asked, it will be fully catered. There'll actually be like 3 course. There's a 3 course buffet. I tried to make it at least worth the ticket price for the food, since most places have quite a large minimum spend there. I've gone over a little bit of the breakdown of what the tickets will be prices will be used for, since there was some curiosity about that. And there are some people who will be coming Friday who don't have the early bird tickets, since we could only really sell 10 of those because it's difficult to book restaurant tables that are bigger than, say, 15 to 20 people, and we didn't want to you didn't want to basically do 2 functions because the ticket
Mm.
price wouldn't stretch to that. But there are people, if you join the Discord, which will be linked below, who will be meeting up on the Friday and doing stuff themselves. So that's kind of the logistics of how that'll work. I know there's been a little bit of curiosity there. A couple of questions I wanted to ask you in terms of your background with Bournbrook Magazine. How did that come
Bournbrook.
about then? How did you end up as a digital editor at Bournbrook? Bournbrook.
Well, it's sort of, I think it's a story that people will recognize in themselves. My life was essentially turned upside down by lockdown, but in a way that was kind of oddly serendipitous. So I was in a job that I hated, miserable, and then I lost my job because of lockdown. So I was kind of well, actually, I was put on furlough for 9 months and then made redundant. So while I was in that kind of abyss, I thought I have to do something, otherwise I'm just going to be sort of just sort of just bug manning out. Which I was, to my eternal shame, for the first lockdown. But I started our current predicament as just sort of a hobby, just to sort of do something. To that point, I was sort of a Twitter anon with a very about 40 followers, really nothing at all. And I just started just sort of doing that, just chat to people. And then that sort of grew sort of quite organically. And then I ended up interviewing Michael Curzon, who's the editor of Bournbrook, who we did a recording, and then afterwards he just asked me if I wanted to work alongside them. So that's when I came in. I moved OTP over to Bournbrook, and then we started our own podcast called The Week in Review, which is sort of it's a weekly sort of discussion show. It's sort of like a more stripped down, pre-recorded version of AA's Unpopular Opinions show.
Yes.
Obviously, it's into half an hour, not three. And then from there, I've started more podcasts. I started one called Your Life in 10, which is sort of our version of Desert Island Discs. And so yeah, so that's kind of that. It kind of just grew from thing to thing to thing, and then recently we've branched into making YouTube videos based on articles in Bournbrook. Most of them are actually by Mr. Adams, who will also be at the event.
Oh yes,
Um,
interviewed him
so
last
yeah,
week.
so that's sort of how it came about. It started off just I had to do something, otherwise I would be just in this sort of pit of despair, and then it just kind of gradually snowballed into the point where I now work with Bournbrook, and I now have a decent sized platform to kind of spout my unqualified reservations.
Well, that's all. That's a good little story there. I'm sure that inspire a few people because I know a lot of people felt very much the same over the first lockdown. But we won't ruin too much before the event. You can obviously speak to both me and Sam. I will call you. I've just been calling you SD Wickett, but I guess that is more of a formal name at the actual event. Thank you guys for listening, and we hope to see you there. Oh, is there anything we want to shill? I think we've gone over most of your stuff before we end the
um,
interview.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, if you wanna find uh Bournebrook stuff, you can go to bournebrookmag.com or bournebrookmag.com/digital. That's where you can find the podcasts and videos. And if you want to read my poems, it's soafm.substack.com.
Okay, and those will be in the video description. Um, Thank you, Sam, and I think that's everything.
Thank you. Brilliant. Cheers, mate.